The Fallen Star, How I Found Mo Sky. Chapter 1, The Weight of Gold. 17 was supposed to be my year, the year I touched gold. My name is Chloe Smith, and for as long as I could remember, the world was a blur of chalk dust, shimmering leotards, and the deafening roar of an arena. Gymnastics wasn't just a sport, it was my entire universe. From the moment I first tumbled across a mat at age 5, I knew. The grace, the power, the precision, it called to me, and I answered with every fiber of my being. Our gym in Atlanta, Georgia, was my second home. Coach Davidson, a man carved from granite and determination, was my guiding star. He pushed me harder than anyone, saw potential in me that even I couldn't grasp. "Chloe," he'd bark, his voice echoing in the vast space. "You have the fire. Don't let it die out." And I never did. By 17, I was a national champion, poised for the international stage. The Olympics, the ultimate dream, felt not just possible, but inevitable. My routines were flawless. My leaps defied gravity. My landings were solid, unyielding declarations of perfection. The media called me the next big thing, America's hope. The pressure was immense, a heavy cloak I wore with pride, believing it was the weight of future gold. It was a Tuesday afternoon, during a routine practice session. The air was thick, with the scent of ambition and sweat. I was on the uneven bars, perfecting a new dismount, a triple twist, complex and daring, designed to earn maximum points. Coach Davidson watched, his usual stoicism replaced by a flicker of anticipation. I launched myself into the air, the world spinning in a controlled, exhilarating vortex. The first twist, perfect. The second, precise. As I prepared for the third, something shifted. A fraction of a second, a micro movement of imbalance. My hand slipped. Time fractured. The cheers of my teammates, the distant rumble of traffic outside, even the beat of my own heart. Everything went silent. The world tilted violently. I remember the sickening lurch in my stomach, the flash of bright overhead lights, and then the brutal impact. A searing, unimaginable pain exploded through my back, a firestorm that consumed everything. Then, nothing, just a void. I lay crumpled on the mat, a broken doll. The gold that was supposed to be my future, suddenly irrelevant, replaced by the crushing weight of stillness. Coach Davidson was kneeling over me, his face ashen, his voice a frantic whisper. "Chloe, Chloe, can you hear me? Don't move. Don't move." The paramedics arrived, their movements swift and efficient, their voices calm and professional. But their calm couldn't penetrate the terror that was beginning to grip me. I couldn't feel my legs. I tried to wiggle my toes, just a twitch, anything. Nothing. Absolute, terrifying nothingness. The ambulance ride was a blur of flashing lights and hushed conversations. The hospital was a sterile maze of white walls and hushed urgency. My parents arrived, their faces etched with a fear that mirrored my own. And then, the doctor. Dr. Evelyn Reed, a kind-faced woman with piercing, intelligent eyes. She spoke softly, clinically, explaining the extent of the damage. "Chloe, you've sustained a severe spinal cord injury. A vertebral fracture at T12. It's significant. There's partial paralysis. Partial paralysis." The words hung in the air, cold and definitive. My future, the glittering path I had so meticulously planned, dissolved in an instant. The gold medal, the international stage, the roar of the crowd, all gone. At 17, I was supposed to be the hope of the team. Instead, in a single catastrophic moment, I became nobody. Just a broken body, a shattered dream, and a mind that whispered, for the very first time, that I didn't want to live. Chapter 2. The Abyss. The hospital room became my prison. The days bled into one another, marked only by the sterile beeping of machines, the hushed footsteps of nurses, and the relentless, gnawing pain in my back. But the physical pain was nothing compared to the agony in my soul. I was Chloe Smith, the gymnast, the girl who could fly. Now, I couldn't even feel my toes. The mirror reflected a stranger, pale, gaunt, trapped in a bed, her once vibrant eyes dull and lifeless. The dream was dead, and with it, a part of me. My teammates visited, their faces a mixture of pity and discomfort. They talked about upcoming meets, about routines, about the future. It was a language I no longer spoke. Their world, once mine, felt impossibly distant, a cruel reminder of what I had lost. I saw their healthy, strong legs, their agile movements, and a wave of bitterness would wash over me, thick and suffocating. "You're going to get through this, Chloe," they'd say, their voices forced. "You're a fighter." But I didn't feel like a fighter. I felt defeated. Every well-meaning word felt like a hollow echo, every sympathetic glance a stab of pity. I retreated into myself, pulling away from my parents, from my friends, from anyone who tried to offer comfort. The physical therapy began, a torturous ritual of stretching, bending, trying to coax life back into unresponsive limbs. Dr. Reed, my neurologist and physiatrist, was relentless yet gentle. "We start small, Chloe," she'd say, her voice calm and steady. Even a flicker, a twitch, it's progress. But I didn't want progress. I wanted my old life back. I wanted to tumble, to leap, to feel the exhilaration of defying gravity. This new reality, this constant struggle against a body that betrayed me, felt pointless. Why bother? What was the point of existing if I couldn't be the person I was born to be? "I don't want to do this anymore," I'd whisper, tears streaming down my face, the words a raw confession of surrender. "Just leave me alone." My parents, heartbroken, tried everything. They brought me books, music, old photo albums of my triumphs, but all I saw was a ghost of a girl, vibrant and alive, a ghost who was no longer me. The thoughts of not wanting to live grew stronger, whispering promises of escape, of an end to the unbearable pain of existence. Dr. Reed, however, refused to give up on me. She understood the psychological torment as much as the physical. "Chloe," she said one morning, sitting by my bedside, her gaze unwavering, "this isn't just about your body. It's about your mind, your spirit. You are not defined by what you can or cannot do physically. You are defined by who you are, what you think, what you feel. And right now, you are battling. You are fighting for your life, even if it doesn't feel like it." She introduced me to Liam O'Connor, a young man a few years older than me, who volunteered at the rehabilitation center. Liam had bright, kind eyes and a disarming smile. He also used a wheelchair. "Hey, Chloe," he'd say, pulling his chair up beside mine. "Heard you're giving the therapists a run for their money." I'd just grunt in response, turning my face to the wall. What could he possibly understand? But Liam didn't push. He just was there. He'd talk about mundane things, sports scores, funny stories from his college classes, the best coffee shops in Atlanta. He never once mentioned my injury, never offered pity. He treated me like a normal person, a rare and startling kindness. One day, he quietly wheeled himself to the window. "You know," he said, staring out at the rain, "it takes a lot of strength to be angry, to push everyone away, to refuse to move forward. Imagine what you could do if you channeled that same energy into fighting for yourself." His words, unexpected and devoid of judgment, pierced through my despair. He understood anger. He understood the fight. He had been there. He had known what it was like to be a star, a promising college athlete whose future had been snatched away by a car accident. He had lived through his own abyss. "You're not alone, Chloe," he said, turning back to me, his smile gentle. "And you're not nobody. You're still here. And as long as you're here, there's a chance for something new." His words were a flicker, a tiny spark in the crushing darkness. A chance for something new. I didn't know what that something was, but for the first time in months, I felt a faint stir of curiosity, a whisper of a possibility that life might not be entirely meaningless. Chapter 3: The Slow Ascent. Liam became my quiet confidant. He never pressured me, never preached. Instead, he shared his own story, not as a comparison, but as a roadmap. He spoke of the dark days, the moments he wanted to give up, and the gradual, painstaking process of finding new purpose. He showed me that life, even a drastically altered life, could still hold joy, meaning, and connection. "It's not about going back to who you were, Chloe," he'd say. "It's about finding out who you're going to be now. And trust me, that person can be just as extraordinary." Inspired by Liam's resilience and Dr. Reed's unwavering dedication, I began to engage in my therapy with a renewed, albeit fragile, determination. The pain was still immense, the progress agonizingly slow. But now there was a reason to push, a faint glimmer of hope. Each session was a battle. My body, once so responsive, felt alien, stubbornly refusing to obey. But I pushed through the tremors, the fatigue, the moments of despair. Dr. Reed and the therapist celebrated every tiny victory, a flicker of movement in a quad muscle, a sustained lift of my leg, a shift in weight. Months turned into a grueling year. I graduated from high school, mostly through remote learning, my diploma feeling like a meaningless piece of paper. My friends were off to college, starting their adult lives, while I was still relearning how to sit up, how to transfer from bed to wheelchair. The contrast was stark, often painful. Then came the day, a milestone. During a physical therapy session, as I strained to push my leg forward, I felt it, a faint, almost imperceptible twitch in my left big toe. It was so small, so fleeting, but it was there. "Dr. Reed," I cried, my voice hoarse with emotion. "I felt it. My toe. It moved." Dr. Reed rushed over, her face beaming. She checked, confirmed. "Yes, Chloe, yes. It's a twitch. Sustained. That's incredible. That's a start." Tears streamed down my face, but these were different tears. Not tears of despair, but of relief, of a fragile, burgeoning hope. It was a sign, a whisper from my body that it wasn't entirely lost. It was the first tangible step, literally, on a new path. From that day on, my drive intensified. I focused on every exercise, every stretch, every painful repetition. The goal was no longer to be normal or to go back to gymnastics. The goal was to regain as much function as possible, to achieve independence, to find what my body could do, rather than mourn what it couldn't. Liam continued to be my rock. He encouraged me to explore new things, things I'd never considered before. He introduced me to adaptive sports, to wheelchair basketball, to painting with a brush held in my mouth. Not to force me into new activities, but to show me the vast spectrum of human ability and creativity. One afternoon, while working on fine motor skills, a physical therapist handed me a paintbrush and a small canvas. "Just play, Chloe," she said. "See what happens." I had always thought of myself as a performer, not a creator. My art was movement, precision. But with the brush in my hand, awkward at first, then slowly gaining control, something unexpected happened. I began to paint. Abstract forms, bursts of color, expressions of the swirling emotions within me. It was raw, unrefined, but deeply freeing. It was a way to communicate, to express, to create beauty in a way that didn't require my legs or my old body. It was a silent language, purely my own. This new creative outlet, combined with the physical progress, however slow, began to chip away at the walls I had built around myself. I wasn't just a former gymnast. I was a painter, a fighter, a survivor. I was becoming someone new, someone I was beginning to like. Chapter 4. A new rhythm. Life outside the rehabilitation center slowly began to feel less daunting. I learned to navigate my customized wheelchair with increasing agility, mastering curbs, ramps, and crowded spaces. The world, once a place designed for able-bodied people, slowly adapted to my new reality. Or perhaps I adapted to it. The painting became more than just therapy. It became a passion. I started experimenting with different mediums, different styles. My art was raw, vibrant, often dark, reflecting the emotional intensity of my journey, but with sparks of brilliant color that hinted at hope and resilience. Liam encouraged me to exhibit my work, and to my surprise, a small local gallery agreed to display a few pieces. The quiet satisfaction of seeing my art on a wall, touching others, was a profound new feeling. One day, while researching adaptive art programs, I stumbled upon a scholarship for students with disabilities at a university in North Carolina. It was an interdisciplinary program, focusing on arts and humanities, with a strong emphasis on community engagement. As I read the description, a new kind of excitement bubbled within me, something different from the intense, competitive drive of gymnastics. This was about growth, about learning, about contributing in a different way. I applied, pouring my heart into the essay, describing my journey not as a tragedy, but as a transformation. I included photographs of my paintings, explaining how art had become my new language. To my astonishment, I was accepted. Moving to a university town in North Carolina was a monumental step. It was a chance to completely reinvent myself, away from the familiar echoes of my past in Atlanta. My parents, though worried, were incredibly supportive. Dr. Reed, my unwavering advocate, believed in me. "You're ready, Chloe," she said, her eyes shining with pride. "This is your new stage." My first few weeks at university were challenging. The campus was sprawling, the buildings sometimes difficult to navigate. The social scene felt alien, but I pushed through, remembering Liam's words, "Channel that energy." I met Sarah in an introductory philosophy class. She was a pre-med student, sharp-witted and fiercely intelligent, with an infectious laugh. She saw past my wheelchair, past my slower pace, to the person beneath. We bonded over late-night study sessions, shared anxieties about exams, and long conversations about life, philosophy, and the mysteries of the universe. Sarah didn't pity me, nor did she treat me with kid gloves. She challenged me, argued with me, and pushed me to think deeper. She saw me as a peer, as a friend, simply Chloe. Her acceptance was a breath of fresh air. One evening, I found myself in the university's gymnasium. A wheelchair basketball practice was in full swing. I watched, fascinated, as athletes in specialized wheelchairs moved with incredible speed and agility, shooting hoops, weaving through opponents. It was a world I hadn't dared to explore, a world of adaptive sports. Liam had mentioned it often, but I had always resisted, seeing it as a painful reminder of my lost athletic life. But watching them now, I saw not limitations, but incredible strength, skill, and joy. It wasn't my old gymnastics, but it was still movement, still competition, still a physical expression of human spirit. A flicker of something, akin to my old competitive fire, stirred within me. This wasn't about being normal. It was about being extraordinary in a new way. It was a new rhythm, a new beat for a life that was constantly redefining itself. Chapter 5: Confronting the Ghost. Life at university settled into a comfortable rhythm. My art flourished, finding an audience in local galleries and student exhibitions. My studies were engaging, and my friendship with Sarah deepened. I even tentatively joined the adaptive sports club, trying out wheelchair tennis and basketball, finding a surprising satisfaction in the new forms of movement and camaraderie. Despite the positive changes, the ghost of my past still lingered. The world of elite gymnastics, once my entire identity, occasionally sent a cold shiver down my spine. News articles about former teammates, social media posts about upcoming competitions. They were constant reminders of the path I could no longer walk. One afternoon, while working on a new painting in my studio, I saw a news report flash across a silent TV screen in the common room. It was a segment about the upcoming World Gymnastics Championships. The camera panned over the U.S. team, their faces focused, determined, and then a familiar face. My old teammate, Maria, now a celebrated veteran, performing a flawless beam routine. A wave of raw, visceral emotion washed over me. It wasn't envy, not exactly. It was a profound, aching grief for the life I had lost, the life I had poured every ounce of my being into. The cheers, the spotlights, the dizzying height of the beam, it all flooded back, vivid and heartbreaking. For a moment, I was 17 again, broken on the mat, my dreams shattered. I wanted to smash the TV, to rage against the unfairness of it all. But I didn't. Instead, I sat there, tears streaming down my face, letting the pain wash over me. It was a necessary release, an acknowledgement of the profound loss that would always be a part of my story. Sarah found me later, quietly crying in my studio. She didn't ask what was wrong. She just sat beside me, her hand resting gently on my shoulder. "It's okay, Chloe," she whispered. "It's okay to mourn what you've lost. It doesn't mean you're not grateful for what you have." Her words were a balm. I looked at the painting I had been working on, a vibrant, almost chaotic piece full of deep blues and fiery oranges, with a strong central figure that seemed to be reaching for the light. It wasn't about gymnastics. It was about resilience. It was about my new life. In that moment, something shifted. The grief, while real, no longer defined me. It was a part of my past, a deep scar, but it didn't control my present or my future. I realized that I didn't want to go back to that old life, even if I miraculously could. That life had been narrow, focused on a singular, demanding goal. My new life, born from the ashes of that dream, was vast, multifaceted, and filled with unexpected passions. I watched Maria finish her routine, her landing perfect. I felt a quiet sense of pride for her, for all of them. Their world was still theirs, and it was beautiful. But my world was mine, and it was beautiful in a different, more profound way. I had found my sky, not in the confines of an arena, but in the boundless expanse of my own spirit. The ghost of my past had finally been laid to rest. Chapter 6: The Scholar and the Healer. My academic career flourished, inspired by Dr. Reed and my own journey through rehabilitation. I gravitated towards fields that allowed me to understand the human body and mind, particularly in the context of trauma and recovery. I majored in kinesiology, with a minor in psychology, immersing myself in the intricate dance between movement, biology, and the incredible power of the human spirit. My unique perspective as someone who had experienced severe physical trauma and navigated the challenging path to recovery gave me a profound advantage. I didn't just study textbooks. I lived the lessons. My essays and presentations often drew on my personal experiences, imbuing them with a depth and authenticity that resonated with my professors and peers. Sarah, my steadfast friend, continued to be a constant source of support and intellectual sparring. She was a year ahead of me, excelling in her pre-med studies, dreaming of becoming a neurosurgeon. We spent countless hours discussing complex medical cases, the ethics of new treatments, and the fascinating complexities of the brain. "You know, Chloe," Sarah said one evening, poring over a neuroscience textbook, "you have a perspective that most doctors will never have. You've been on the other side. You understand the fear, the frustration, the sheer will it takes." That's invaluable. Her words sparked a new thought within me. Could I, too, contribute to healing? Not as an athlete, but as a healer, a guide for others walking a similar path? The idea began to take root, a compelling new ambition that felt both natural and profoundly meaningful. I started volunteering at a local spinal cord injury rehabilitation center in North Carolina, similar to the one that had helped me in Atlanta. I worked with patients, sharing my story, offering encouragement, and demonstrating adaptive techniques. I wasn't just a former gymnast. I was a living testament to resilience, a beacon of hope for those navigating their own darkest days. The patients, often young and newly injured, looked at me with a mixture of despair and fragile hope. "How do you do it?" they'd ask, their voices raw with pain. "One breath at a time," I'd tell them, "one tiny step at a time, and by finding your new sky." The satisfaction of helping others, of seeing a flicker of hope ignite in their eyes, was unlike anything I had ever experienced. It was more profound than any gold medal, more meaningful than any perfect routine. It was about connection, about shared humanity, about transforming personal tragedy into a force for good. My academic achievements culminated in a master's degree, and I began to explore options for further study or professional work. The field of rehabilitation psychology called to me, a perfect blend of my academic interests and my lived experience. I wanted to help people not just heal physically, but emotionally, to guide them through the psychological wilderness that often accompanies severe trauma. It was a far cry from the glittering arenas of my past. There were no spotlights, no roaring crowds, no perfect tens, but there was something far more precious. The quiet triumph of helping another soul find their way back from the abyss, the profound satisfaction of knowing I was truly making a difference. The path I had once thought was the end had led me to a calling far greater than any I could have imagined. I was no longer an athlete who was nobody. I was a scholar, a healer, and a guide, and I was finally, truly myself. Chapter 7. The Unbroken Thread. Life continued its unfolding, gracefully and purposefully. I pursued my doctorate in rehabilitation psychology, dedicating my life to understanding and supporting individuals navigating life-altering injuries. My research focused on the psychological impact of spinal cord injuries and the development of innovative therapeutic interventions. It was challenging, demanding work, but it was also incredibly rewarding. Dr. Evelyn Reed, my former physiatrist from Atlanta, became a cherished mentor. We collaborated on research papers, presented at conferences, and shared our insights. She often told me, "Chloe, your greatest strength isn't just your intellect, it's your lived experience. You speak a language of empathy that no textbook can teach." Liam O'Connor, the quiet volunteer who had first pierced through my despair, remained a dear friend. He had become a successful adaptive sports coach, inspiring countless athletes with disabilities. We would often meet for coffee, reminiscing about our early days in rehab, marveling at how far we had both come. He was a living testament to the truth that a broken body did not mean a broken spirit. My art, once a raw emotional outlet, evolved into a powerful form of advocacy. I exhibited my paintings, often accompanying them with personal narratives about trauma, resilience, and transformation. My work resonated deeply with audiences, inspiring conversations about disability, overcoming adversity, and the multifaceted nature of human strength. The girl who could fly now moved people with her words and her colors. One day, I received an invitation to speak at a national gymnastics conference. It was a surprising, almost surreal request. They wanted me, Chloe Smith, the former national champion whose career had ended so abruptly, to share my story of resilience. A mix of emotions swirled within me: apprehension, curiosity, a faint echo of the old pain, but also a deep sense of purpose. This was an opportunity to return to the world that had defined and then nearly destroyed me, but on my own terms. To show them not the broken star, but the whole, thriving woman I had become. The day of the conference arrived. I stood backstage, in a bustling hotel ballroom, the murmur of the crowd a familiar hum. It was a stark contrast to the roar of an arena, but the energy was palpable. I looked at the crutches leaning against the wall, at the wheelchair that had become an extension of myself, and felt no shame, only gratitude for the mobility they provided. When my name was called, I wheeled onto the stage, a calm confidence settling over me. The audience, filled with gymnasts, coaches, and sports professionals, fell silent. I saw some familiar faces from my past, former teammates, coaches who had known me as America's hope. I began my story, my voice steady, clear, and imbued with the quiet wisdom of years. I spoke of the passion for gymnastics, the thrill of flight, and the devastating moment of the fall. I spoke of the abyss of despair, the feeling of being nobody. I spoke of Dr. Reed's unwavering belief and Liam's quiet strength, which had guided me back to the light. I didn't sugarcoat the pain, the physical and emotional agony, but I also spoke of the unexpected gifts, the profound empathy I had discovered, the deep connections I had forged, the new passions that had filled my life. I spoke of how losing one path had led me to a greater, more meaningful calling. I was the hope of the team, I said, my gaze sweeping across the audience. And then I was nobody, but then I became someone else. Someone stronger, perhaps even more impactful. I became a healer, an advocate, an artist. I became a woman who understood that life's true value isn't in what you achieve with your body, but in what you become with your spirit. I paused, a profound silence hanging in the air. The gold medal I chased, the perfect 10 I strove for, they were fleeting. But the strength I found within myself, the compassion I learned to give, the purpose I built from the ashes of my dream, those are the true lasting legacies. I concluded by saying, my life didn't end that day on the mat. It began. It began anew on a different path, towards a sky I never knew existed. And it is a sky filled with a beauty and a light far greater than any I could have imagined. A wave of applause, heartfelt and thunderous, erupted, and I wheeled off the stage. I felt a deep sense of peace. I had confronted the ghost of my past, not with bitterness or regret, but with gratitude. My story was no longer just a personal tragedy. It was a testament to the indomitable power of the human spirit. And I, Chloe Smith, the fallen star, had found her rightful place in a different, more luminous firmament. Chapter 8: Threads of Connection. The speech at the gymnastics conference marked a profound turning point. It was as if I had officially closed one chapter of my life, not by forgetting it, but by fully integrating it into the narrative of who I had become. The response was overwhelming. Messages poured in from athletes, coaches, and parents, thanking me for my honesty and inspiration. It solidified my role not just as a professional in my field, but as a voice for resilience and a testament to life beyond shattered dreams. My career as a rehabilitation psychologist flourished. I established my own practice, specializing in helping individuals with spinal cord injuries and their families navigate the complex psychological and emotional landscape of recovery. My approach was holistic, combining clinical expertise with the profound empathy born from my own lived experience. I understood the silent battles, the invisible wounds, the desperate need for hope. I also dedicated a significant portion of my time to advocacy. I worked with nonprofit organizations to promote accessibility, raise awareness about spinal cord injuries, and fund research for new treatments. I spoke at schools, hospitals, and community centers, sharing my story not to garner sympathy, but to empower, to illustrate the incredible capacity for human adaptation and growth. My art continued to be a powerful companion. My paintings, evolving over the years, became less raw and more reflective, imbued with a serene beauty that spoke of acceptance and deep peace. I held occasional exhibitions, with proceeds often going to organizations supporting adaptive sports or spinal cord injury research. My art became a dialogue, a bridge between my inner world and the outer one. Sarah, my college friend, achieved her dream of becoming a neurosurgeon. We remained incredibly close, our bond strengthened by years of shared intellectual pursuits and unwavering friendship. She often referred patients to my practice, trusting my unique blend of clinical skill and personal insight. She was my intellectual partner, and a living reminder that the human brain, despite its complexities, is capable of extraordinary things, held immense capacity for healing and adaptation. Liam, ever the steadfast presence, became a nationally recognized figure in adaptive sports. He coached a successful wheelchair basketball team, leading them to multiple championships. We celebrated each other's successes, our bond a quiet testament to the enduring power of friendship forged in the crucible of adversity. We were two people who had faced similar storms and found different yet equally fulfilling paths to peace, paths through them. My parents, who had endured so much alongside me, found peace in my happiness and purpose. They were my biggest cheerleaders, attending every lecture, every exhibition, their eyes brimming with pride. They saw not the fallen star, but the woman who had built an entirely new constellation. Years turned into decades. The world of elite gymnastics, once a source of lingering pain, became a distant, almost nostalgic memory. I would occasionally watch the Olympics or major championships on TV, admiring the incredible athleticism, but feeling no yearning, no regret. My life was so full, so rich, so deeply meaningful that the old dream no longer held any power over me. It was simply a chapter, a foundational one, in a much larger, more extraordinary book. Chapter 9: The Legacy of Light. In my late 50s, I decided to transition from full-time clinical practice to focus more on writing and public speaking. I wanted to share my story, my insights, and my therapeutic approaches with a wider audience. I published a memoir, aptly titled The Sky Remembers, a memoir of falling, healing, and finding flight. It was an instant bestseller, resonating with readers who had faced their own falls, whether physical, emotional, or professional. The book wasn't just about surviving a spinal cord injury. It was about thriving in the face of the unimaginable. It was about how losing one identity can be the catalyst for discovering a truer, deeper self. It was about the courage to grieve, the discipline to rebuild, and the profound joy of finding purpose in the most unexpected places. The success of the memoir led to international speaking engagements. I traveled the world, sharing my message of resilience, empathy, and the power of human connection. I spoke to diverse audiences, medical professionals, athletes, support groups, and general audiences seeking inspiration. My message was universal. Life will inevitably bring challenges, but it's our response to those challenges that truly defines us. One evening, after a particularly moving lecture, a young woman approached me, tears in her eyes. "Dr. Smith," she said, her voice trembling, "I was a gymnast. I followed your career, and then I saw your accident. I was so heartbroken for you. But tonight, listening to you, you've given me hope. My own dream feels shattered, not by injury, but by failure. And you've shown me that it's okay to mourn, but then you have to find a new sky." I looked at her, seeing a reflection of my younger self, filled with both despair and the nascent stirrings of possibility. "It's not about being the best in one thing," I told her, my voice gentle. "It's about being the best version of yourself, whatever that looks like. Your worth isn't tied to a trophy, or a title, or a specific path. It's inherent, and it's waiting for you to discover it." These conversations, these quiet moments of connection, were the true measure of my success. They were the gold I had always truly sought, not the kind that hung around a neck, but the kind that shone from within, reflecting in the eyes of others. I never forgot the sensation of flying, the thrill of twisting through the air. But now my flight was different. It wasn't physical, it was spiritual. It was the soaring freedom of a life lived authentically, purposefully, and with profound gratitude. I sometimes imagined the 17-year-old Chloe, lying broken on that mat, whispering that she didn't want to live. I wished I could go back and tell her, "Hold on, it gets better. It gets so much better. You will find a sky more vast, more beautiful, more meaningful than you could ever conceive. You will not just survive, you will truly fly." My life became a testament to the belief that even when one door closes with a deafening thud, 1,000 new windows open, each offering a unique vista onto a future more beautiful than the one that was lost. I was the girl who was the hope of the team, then nobody. But then I became everything. And that, I knew, was my truest, most enduring legacy, a legacy of light, forged in the darkest of times. Chapter 10. The Unseen Horizon. As I moved into my golden years, my life in North Carolina continued to be rich and fulfilling. My practice, though reduced, still provided invaluable connections. My books continued to inspire. My art, ever evolving, remained a quiet source of joy and reflection. The Phoenix Hearth, Sarah's Bakery in Nashville, became a symbol of shared resilience, often holding my art exhibitions and book signings. Sarah, my dear friend, remained a constant, her medical expertise a gentle reminder of the body's fragility and the spirit's indomitable strength. Liam, too, continued to be a beacon, his own journey a parallel narrative of transformed purpose. I often thought about the concept of nobody, the feeling that had once consumed me, reducing me to a hollow shell. I realized now that nobody was merely a starting point, a blank canvas upon which a new, more vibrant identity could be painted. It was the shedding of an old skin, painful but necessary, to reveal the true essence beneath. The world of gymnastics had defined me, and when that definition was shattered, I felt utterly lost. But in that loss, I found liberation, the freedom to define myself on my own terms, not by external expectations or physical prowess, but by my spirit, my intellect, and my capacity for love and empathy. My body, though forever changed, was my ally. It had carried me through pain, through rehabilitation, and now through a life of immense purpose. My wheelchair, once a symbol of limitation, became a tool of freedom, allowing me to navigate the world and connect with others. My crutches, once a reminder of my brokenness, were now simply aids, helping me stand tall and proud. I often spoke of the unseen horizon, the path that opens when the one you've meticulously planned suddenly disappears. It was the core of my message, the heart of my own story. It was the understanding that sometimes the greatest blessings are disguised as the most profound tragedies. The accident had stripped me bare, forcing me to confront my deepest fears and prejudices about myself. But in that vulnerability, I discovered an inner strength, a wellspring of resilience I never knew existed. My days were filled with quiet joys, the laughter of my grandchildren, the warmth of old friendships, the satisfaction of helping a patient find a glimmer of hope, the creative flow of a new painting, the words forming on a page as I drafted a new article. These were the true gold medals of my life, earned not through perfect routines, but through imperfect yet tenacious living. I was no longer the hope of the national team. I was the hope for those who felt lost, broken, and alone. I was the living embodiment of the truth that a life transformed, even by the most profound loss, can become a masterpiece of strength, purpose, and boundless love. The setting sun would often paint the sky in fiery hues, reminiscent of the colors in my early paintings, a visual metaphor for the journey from darkness to light. And as I watched, I would feel an overwhelming sense of gratitude for every twist and turn, every fall, and every soaring moment. I was Chloe Smith, and my sky, boundless and full of stars, was truly, beautifully mine.